We live in a new world. A world that is changing faster than we ever thought possible. A world where we can either adapt or get left behind. It's not about the swiftness of the change, but the greatness of it. Social, cultural, political, but perhaps most of all, professional. Businesses are evolving in different ways, and it's opening up countless new doors for commerce. And in this moment of rapid transition, one thing remains constant. For more than a century, we have served as one of the longest and most vibrant American chambers in Asia. Time and again, we have recognized and confirmed our commitment to trade and commerce and the good it does to our members. By bringing leaders together, by being a voice of business, by making the right connections, and by taking action on the things that matter. This is what AmCham was built for. We are here to serve the interests of Filipino and American businesses by being an avenue for valuable knowledge, effective networking, proactive advocacy, and continued affiliation. All of which contribute to the constant development of the economy. This new and shifting world is full of possibilities. But for us, it comes with a great responsibility. We are AmCham, gathering information to share and discuss the things that drive us forward, connecting leaders, governments, and businesses, taking action on commercial, economic, and even global issues, contributing to the growth of the economy that will strengthen the relationship between its members. For commerce, for progress, and most of all, for country. AmCham Philippines.
Some might be overwhelmed by the complexity of a disruptive world. We see this as an exciting time for bold and forward-thinking leaders.
With several leaders of economies today, reminded APEC leaders to focus on economic synergy and cooperation on this year's APEC.
Welcome to Boracay, the Philippines' most famous beach.
We have covered the journey of our young democracy. In ANC, we were witnesses to the defining moments of Philippine history that influenced the world. A
to the service of election.
We chronicle the journey of a dynamic young population as it makes its mark in a robust economy.
We talk to leaders. We don't shy away from difficult conversations.
ANC Leadership Series.
We don't just tell stories, we tell you why they matter. We sift through the noise and arm you with facts.
We report about disruption and how the latest technology and innovation have changed the way we live.
We told stories about crisis, but also about opportunities that came with it.
This is the Philippines.
The success story we want to share with the world, and we are ANC.
Our host for today's webinar currently anchors ANC's flagship business program, Market Edge, and anchors the PSE reports live at the stock exchange. She has a degree in broadcast communication from the University of the Philippines and a master's in business administration from the Ateneo Graduate School of Business. She covers both macroeconomics and the financial markets and chases market-moving stories, interviewing decision makers and thought leaders in the field of business. She's also passionate about following inspiring stories of budding entrepreneurs who support the local economy. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our host, journalist and TV presenter of the ABS-CBN News Channel, Ms. Michelle Ong.
Thank you for that, Miguel, and good morning to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to today's webinar, Creating a New Future for Philippine Businesses. Now, this session is brought to you by Colliers Philippines in partnership with the American Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines and the ABS-CBN News Channel. Now, it's been called a game changer, described as the largest fiscal stimulus program for the private sector in the Philippines' history that will provide an estimated 1 trillion pesos worth of tax relief over the next 10 years. The CREATE Bill, or the Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises Act, was signed into law by President Duterte back in March, took effect officially just this Monday, April 12th, although its provisions will apply retroactively from July 2020. Cash-strapped companies who have very limited runway left 1 year into the pandemic could certainly use this relief. Now, this also, important to note, is the second package of the Duterte administration's Legacy Tax Reforms Initiative. Without further ado, to formally begin this webinar, let's now call on Colliers Philippines Director and Head for Tenant Representation Office Services, Dom Frederick Andaya, to deliver his opening remarks. Hi, Dom.
Hello, Mimi. Thank you. We would have wanted this event to be held face-to-face, but we are in this situation, and we apologize again for the technical difficulty earlier on. But I think there are many things that are good about this CREATE law. One, I think, is the reallocation of resources from the public to the private sector, so that the private sector will have more resources to invest and reinvest in sustaining the economic growth of the country as well as generating employment. The other thing is that, which is related to and this will benefit directly the business process outsourcing companies, is that the sunset provision has been much improved. It will be a 10 to 17 years of stability for this particular industry. So on behalf of the Colliers Philippines, our partners, ANC and AmCham, and the core team who worked on this event, I want to welcome everybody, our host, especially our host, Mimi Ong, our speaker, the Honorable Senator Pia Cayetano, and of course, our valued clients who have been patient enough to wait for this meaningful conversation. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day.
Thank you so much for that, Dom. And I think it's now time to introduce our keynote speaker for today. Well, she has built a track record for getting the difficult but necessary tasks done. Her legislative work has benefited Filipinos across ages, gender, and social status, ranging from infants' vaccination to seniors' social pension. Over the years, she has fought for women's access to reproductive health services, expansion of maternity leave credits to meet global standards, and mandatory immunization for infants and children. As Ways and Means Chair, she has pushed for two key reforms, namely the Sin Tax Law of 2020, that's RA 11467, and of course, the topic for today, CREATE Bill, the Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises Bill. She's been one of the Senate's most active members throughout the past year as the Philippines dealt with the COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, she has sponsored the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act, co-sponsored the Bayanihan to Recover as One Act, and co-authored the COVID-19 vaccination law. She advocates sustainable development as chair of the Senate Committee on SDGs, Innovation, and Future Thinking. Among her measures are the Safe Pathways Network Bill, which the Senate has passed on final reading, and the Sustainable Cities and Communities Bill. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome the lawyer, the triathlete, and the mother, the Senate's Pinay in Action, Senator Pia Cayetano. Hi, Senator Pia.
Hello, good morning. Morning, Mimi, and good morning to everyone. It's a delight for me to join you today. And without further ado, I'll go straight into my presentation that I prepared for all of you. So let me start by greeting everyone a beautiful, what day is it? Is it Tuesday or Wednesday? I lose track of the day now that we're actually working from home. The Senate, by the way, I do go to the Senate once or twice a week, but we have been in lockdown since just before Easter. So I've been working from home, and we actually don't have a session on these days. So we have hearings, well, in my case, from home. So anyway, I'd like to greet all the participants and of course the organizers. It's a delight to be able to join you at the Collier International Client Engagement webinar. So yes, I was asked to talk about CREATE, and I do like to talk about the work that we do in the Senate. It is also good to have this targeted audience so that you can really understand the kind of work that we have put into this final product. For those of you who followed CREATE, I hope I'll be able to give you some interesting insights. And for those of you that are new to CREATE, I hope I don't get too technical that you get lost or fall asleep during the presentation, because CREATE is a very technical bill. So this is a bill that was handled by the Ways and Means Committee, which I am the chair of. And I became the chair of this committee at the start of the 18th Congress in July of 2019. My first major task was the Sin Tax Law, wherein we tax for the first time vapes and e-cigs. And I, as an advocate, I must say that I need to remind all of you to warn the young people in your lives, if you have teenage children or college-age children, vapes and e-cigs are not meant to be used by young people. In fact, they are supposed to be used by adults who intend to shift from cigarettes to vaping. So sorry for the segue, but it is my job, and sayang naman yung work ko if I don't explain this all to you. So that was the sin tax law, which took up the first part of my time as a re-elected senator in 2019. Shortly after that, well, actually not shortly, immediately after that, we dove into the CREATE law. So this starts with bills being filed and bills already in the Senate. And then we had a number of hearings. I'm very meticulous with hearings because during the hearings, we get the opportunity to really interact and meet with all the sectors, all the stakeholders. So my team and I had numerous meetings and hearings. So hearings are the official, well, hearings where, you know, the resource persons make their statements, but a lot of meetings go on because we have lengthy discussions with stakeholders who would like to share their concerns, their worries, give their suggestions, and that happens behind the scenes. A lot of that happens for us to really get a feel of the concerns of the stakeholders. So so this went on. We started immediately after Syntax, so late 2019, and by well, a little bit of history. It's considered 25 years in the making. I had meetings with the former secretaries of finance, and some of them were the secretaries when the first form of these bills were filed, the Trabajo Bill. And what was originally filed was called the Sitira Bill. Just to give you a point of comparison, under the Sitira Bill, there already was a decrease in the corporate income tax. It would have gone down 1% per year. So from 30%, it would have gone to 29% this year, and then 28% the next year, 27%, so 1% until it reaches 25%. So it's about 5 years. So when COVID hit, because I filed my committee report for Sitira in February, and then COVID was an official thing, or the effects of it, the lockdown and all happened in March. The Sitira bill was then transformed in the next few months into the CREATE bill. So at the height of lockdown, you know, that's when we started our online hearings, our online discussions, and so CREATE was then created, and the corporate income tax immediately, instead of that 1% per year, immediately was brought down 5%. So the proposal under CREATE was 25% corporate income tax. And then the lengthening of the transition period for the incentives also happened in the CREATE, but I'll go into that a little bit more. So like I said, CREATE was born during the pandemic. It's a pandemic baby, and it is specifically in response to the pandemic. So CREATE did not come about just because of the pandemic, because its predecessor, Sitira and even Trabajo, have been existing. But the final version of CREATE very much takes into consideration that we are living through a pandemic right now. So let me dive into some of the details, key features of CREATE. That just happens to be my picture on the day we passed it in the Senate. I don't know, I guess for businessmen, it's like closing a major deal that you've been working on. I mean, it's a lot of work, a lot of sleepless night. It's very contentious because there are a lot of businesses who lobby for this. Some of you might be among the audience. You know how hard you lobbied. And then among senators, they either have a group that they represent, or you know, they feel strongly about their position. So it's very contentious. And believe it or not, I don't like confrontations, but it's part of the job. It's part of in a way, it's part of my training as a lawyer. I did not like to be a litigation lawyer though, but yeah, to that extent, something I've had to, a skill that I've had to develop. So here goes. So like I said, the main features, the reduction of corporate income tax. It's now 25% for all businesses, but it goes as low as 20% for domestic corporations with a total asset not exceeding 100 million pesos, and that excludes land, and a total net taxable income not exceeding 5 million. So the point here is this is really meant to target the MSMEs, the new businesses, the ones that are just starting up. There's a lot more of them. And really the idea is to get them started and honestly to get them registered. No, I'm sure you're familiar with all the budding entrepreneurs during the time of COVID. Most of them are not registered, and we would like them to be part of the system. So this is also one way of getting them in there. Okay, and the new rate now brings us up to par with our neighbors. If you will notice, there's about 4 countries that are at 20%, and so our lower range of our corporate income tax is the same. And then our higher range of 25% is pretty much similar to Malaysia and Myanmar, not too far off from Indonesia. Okay, so yeah, and the other thing to keep in mind is, again, because this is a product of the pandemic, I mean, it was born out of the pandemic partly, it also is meant to be a lifeline to businesses that were having difficulties during this time. Just a little bit more details on the taxation side. The minimum corporate income tax, which is at 2%, which was at 2%, is reduced to 1% effective July 1, 2020 until June 2023. So there's a time frame. Hopefully that's post-pandemic 2023, but we put it there so that it is also a relief for corporate taxpayers. And then the 3% percentage tax for small businesses with sales less than 3 million. The 3% percentage tax is reduced to 1% effective also July 1 of last year until June 30, 2023. And let me take note that in both cases, this will go back to their rates, to their former rates after June 30, 2023. And then for proprietary educational institutions and hospitals, which are nonprofit, the 1%, it is 1% effective July 1, 2020 until June 30, 2023. So the rate is 10%, but again, this is a break that's being given for proprietary educational institutions and hospitals that are nonprofit. And then also on the imposition of improperly accumulated earning tax. 10% of the improperly accumulated tax income of each corporation for each taxable year, and this is repealed. Okay. So let's go now on the incentive side. So basically, this really was the most contentious part of the bill. Everybody wanted the lowering of corporate income tax, but it was just a question of how much and how soon. But this one was like a lot of back and forth. Like this really took up 365 days of my year and maybe 25 hours in a day. But here we go. And I believe I've heard directly from businessmen and chambers of business associations and so on, that they're all quite pleased with this. So what happened was we did a bit of distinction between exporters and domestic enterprise. For exporters, we obviously wanted this to be an environment where they would come in, make the investments, and then the products would be sent out. But for the domestic market, it's very different because they're actually fulfilling not just a need that we have, but at the same time, it's a big business opportunities. I mean, there's 110 million Filipinos. So this is big opportunities as well. And therefore, to that extent, you'll see that the exporters get a bit more, how to say this, a bit more enticing incentives because they don't have to come here. It's not a market for them. Unlike the domestic market, it's a market that they, that they can fill up, but it's mutually beneficial. Here, we want to be competitive with other countries. So, ang come on natin sa domestic market is we have a big we have a big demand because we're a big population. The common with the exporters is that we need to create that environment that is more enticing, ideally, than other countries. So I hope you can read it for yourselves. I won't go through it anymore, but basically, if you look at it for the exporters, there's a total of 14 to 17 years that you have incentives, and this is between the income tax holiday, so no tax at all is being paid for 4 to 7 years. And then after that, you still have 10 years where you get this special income tax rate, it's called the SEIT, of 5% only of the gross income. So to avail of this, for those who are not familiar at all, you have to be a registered enterprise, okay? You don't just say, okay, it's me, I'm availing. No, you have to be a registered enterprise. You have to be in the special list, the SIPP list, to qualify. And when you qualify, these are the benefits that you get. So I was talking about exporters. The only difference is it also has an option that instead of getting the special corporate income tax, you do enhanced deduction. I'll go into that a little bit later. But these are just, again, incentives. Compared to the domestic market, the total incentivized years is 9 to 12 years. And again, it's an income tax holiday of 4 to 7 years. And then you get enhanced deductions of 5 years. All right, so let me move on from that. I mentioned that you have an option for enhanced deductions. You do get enhanced. For exporters, it's an option. For the domestic market, after your income tax holiday, then that is where you go enhanced deduction. And basically it is, if you look at these expenses, you get to deduct the additional amount. So more income for you at the end of the day. Okay. And next, let's go to the transition period. This is what we call the sunset period. This is, again, this was highly lobbied and debated. So I think we came up with something which was quite interesting quite acceptable to most of the current investors. So basically, if an investor is currently enjoying the income tax holiday, then they just get to finish it. So we didn't change that. You get to finish your income tax holiday before you move on as scheduled. And for those who are currently enjoying the 5% gross, the gross income earnings, they enjoy it for 10 more years. Okay. So now let me explain a little bit on how, who is the policy-making body behind this and what exactly their role is. So we now have the FIRB, that's the Fiscal Incentives Review Board, and they are the policy-making and oversight function on the administration and grant of tax incentives of the IPAs. The IPAs are the investment agencies, so if you've heard of the EPSAs, the Clark Economic Zones, yan sila yung IPAs. And then the FIRB is also in charge of the monitoring and evaluation of tax incentives through a cost-benefit analysis. So a little bit of explanation here. As businessmen, you will understand that cost-benefit analysis are very important, but over the years, before CREATE, there was no such thing. So the IPAs, because it is their desire, of course, we acknowledge that, to bring in investment in that area. And normally the IPAs have a very strong support of the local government. The idea is to really bring investments to the region, to their area, which is obviously well and good for them and for the country, but specifically for that area. But there would not be any cost-benefit analysis over the years as to whether the investments that were brought in turned out to be beneficial for the community, turned out to be beneficial for the country. So these investors would come in, but there's no accountability. And that's not good, right? I don't need to explain any further than that. I think that's self-explanatory. So what we wanted is that the country, the Filipino people, remember this, and this is what I tried to explain throughout the debates. These are incentives are lost income to the country and to the Filipino people. They are taxes that would otherwise be paid. So when we exempt these corporations from taxes, there should be a clear reason why they're exempted, and then there should be clear accountability as why they should continue to enjoy those exemptions. So that's all we tried to do here, and we're hoping that in the next administration they clearly follow the policy set out in the CREATE law. So just to give you an example of one of the very important roles of FIRB, they are tasked to approve all investments over 1 billion. That's the one on the right side. But there were interventions on the floor requesting, and it was approved, that the investment promotion agencies would be the ones to improve investments of 1 billion and below. So that is how we have it. Meanwhile, the president has the power to modify the mix, the period or manner of availment of incentive projects with a comprehensive sustainable development plan with high level of sophistication and innovation, and a minimum investment capital of 50 billion pesos or $1 billion, or a minimum direct local employment generation of 10,000. So the point here is two things. Yeah, we can easily look at the monetary value or the employment value, and that's indicated there, $1 billion or employment of 10,000 people. But we wanted to be sure that these are investments with a sustainable development plan, because I've been attending a lot of conferences online, the benefit of COVID, as agree and I'm sure have experienced. And the reality is we have this window of opportunity to truly change the way we do business, or to improve the way we do business. And that's through the path of sustainability. So since I do chair the other committee I chair is the Committee on Sustainable Development Goals, Innovation, Futures Thinking, I wanted to ensure that the businesses that do come in and that the president would possibly modify are the sustainable businesses. Okay. And also want to point out that these incentives are being given with inclusive growth in mind. So enterprises that are fully relocate outside of NCR get an additional 3 years of income tax holidays. And enterprises that locate in areas recovering from disaster or armed conflict get an additional 2 years of income tax holiday. And just to also point out how specific COVID is also, CREATE is to COVID response, there are VAT exemptions on COVID-related products, COVID drugs, vaccines, and medical devices. But again, we are mindful that health does not revolve around COVID alone. So we also took the opportunity to include VAT exemptions from key diseases. Please take note that in the syntax law, we already carried VAT exemption for other diseases. So this is in line with DOH priorities. And so we included here in this next set of tax laws, VAT exemption for cancer, mental illness, TB, and kidney diseases. Okay. So I'm coming towards the end of my presentation. As I mentioned, CREATE, my objective with CREATE is really to ensure sustainability as well. I believe it is extremely short-sighted if our vision will not include sustainable development goals. I do hope that the companies represented today are already on their own roads to sustainability. I encourage it. If there's anything I can do, please get in touch with me, because this is actually my passion. It allows me to work through the cross-sectoral interests or concerns of the various agencies. They don't talk to each other as much as they should, but these SDGs are really very much interrelated. So yeah, I mean, my personal favorite is 11 and 12, that's sustainable cities and communities, and 12 is not shown in this slide, but 12 is on responsible consumption, waste management, in other words. So yeah, that's all. They're all tied in. And on another occasion, I mean, on separate occasions, I talk really just about sustainable development goals, and I'm happy to have these talks with any of you who are interested in it as well. So we did try to ensure that we target these sustainable development goals in the finalization of the CREATE law. So finally, here we are, and the CREATE is a law, and it has been lauded just today, actually. A joint statement of several foreign chambers and business groups called CREATE the most important fiscal bill passed in the last 3 decades. And they further went on to say that it ends the uncertainty in the Philippine investment climate. So despite our being in a pandemic, we are hoping that we will be able to invite more investments. We are hoping that we are creating that business environment that is most conducive despite the fact that we are in the middle of a pandemic. I already talked about the SDG. I could go on and on about it, but just one quick segue, that committee actually includes futures thinking. So I am pleased that because I chair both committees, the SDG and Futures Thinking Committee is a new committee in the Senate. And being the chair of the Committee on Ways and Means and the senior vice chair of the Committee on Finance, which is why I ended up sponsoring Bayanihan 1, allows me to ensure that the sustainability discussion is in every major economic discussion and economic bill that we pass. So that's it for my presentation, and I'm ready for a few questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Senator Pia. So I guess we have very limited time. I think we have 10 minutes left for the Q&A, so let's get the ball rolling. So I wanted to start with Senator Pia, how pro-growth is CREATE law? I mean, when it comes to private sector investments, what are you expecting to see when you cut corporate tax rates from 30 to 25%? Because this is where I'm coming from. The Trump tax cuts from 2017 cut corporate tax rates even more aggressively from 35% to 21%, but the money didn't flow into the real economy. A lot of the money just went to share buybacks, going back to the rich shareholders of the big companies. So how do you envision the Philippine version of these tax cuts, the CREATE law, to be pro-growth?
Yeah, well, you know, we actually have other bills or laws that were passed, and this is the fifth was already passed as well, and obviously Bayanihan 1 and 2, and these are the measures that poured in funding with the objective of public funds were set aside with the objective to stimulate the economy. That one is a separate debate where we can try to see by now, between the time that those laws were passed, if it has actually stimulated the economy, if people have actually gone out and taken loans, because there is a lot of resistance to taking out loans. So when they're in the form of loans, I think some of the evidence shows that there aren't that many takers. But in the case of CREATE, it's very different. It's taking out what would have normally been in the hands of government by way of taxes. That amount is lost now to government. That amount will never go to government. That amount is floating out there and stays in the businesses, no? So when you cut 5% for every, I try to explain this to, I speak a lot to college students or younger people. I say, like, you know, for every let's say 10 million of income earned, 5% now is freed up. That would have otherwise gone to the government. That's now freed up. It could be used by the board. The board could approve the use of that funds for expansion of the business. It could be used as simply assistance to employees. It could be reinvested, whatever. So that's now in the hands of employees. And obviously in a free economy like ours, that's what businessmen like, right? So that's the main feature of Create. That's how it becomes pro-growth and pro-productive. And then in the bigger picture, in terms of the international sphere, well, we are trying to be more competitive with in our region. So I did show you a chart that shows that finally our rate comes closer to our neighbors, no? So that obviously is very simple. Now, if they look at it like, okay, it's not too bad, I mean, we do have advantages. It's not always just about the rate, the corporate income tax rate or the actual incentives. I've gone through that throughout the debates, like obviously, and this is another strong advocacy of mine, our competence in the English language. We are losing only because we don't invest in it as much as other countries are. So if there are representatives or businessmen out there who share the same concern as me, by all means, get in touch with me, because I do feel so strongly that a generation ago, we were multilingual, and now there's a big divide between those who go to private school and those who go to public school, and that divide is getting stronger. You have better English speaking for those who go to good schools, and let's not get into this because this is my pet peeve, but by focusing only on the mother tongue, they lose that opportunity to grasp the English language earlier. And it is a world where English is the most dominant used language. So those are part of our advantages. It's not just about the corporate income tax itself or the incentives, but I'm just trying to balance it to show you that. So now we should have a more enticing climate.
Senator Pia, that's a very fair point, but I want to push back a bit on the pro-growth aspect. I wanted to cite a comment from national scientist, economics professor emeritus of UP, Raul Fabella, who said that he was disappointed with the final bill structure because there was no obligation to invest for these companies who are benefiting from the tax cuts to invest in return for the tax bonanza. He says the government is essentially giving away money to corporations whose shareholders are rich. That this might not, you leave so much of the decision in the hands of the big companies, that the MSMEs, the smaller players, will be left on the fringes.
Let me answer that this way. There are two components to the Create law. And when it comes to just lowering the corporate income tax, that is accurate in the sense that we're not asking for anything in return. We're just making our rates more competitive internationally, and really just giving the businesses a free hand in deciding how they will use this extra funds, which otherwise would go on to be paid as taxes. So you are right. That comment is fair, that if they decide to put it in their pockets, they can. But remember, for big businesses, they have that opportunity if they go out of the country and invest anyway. So I've heard all the arguments, and that is one of the biggest arguments for the biggest companies, which I feel, if you want to be fair, then that's what we're targeting, the big companies. They're just going to move their money outside, because outside they have tax-free havens. They have areas where they pay 15%, 20%. You saw the chart. So their argument is, why will we invest it here? We have the means, we have the resources, we can invest it there. So that, for me, addresses the big companies, because they'll otherwise bring it out. And now they can stay here. And these are Filipino companies who want to stay here, but they're just saying, give us naman that opportunity to make as much money in our country as we can make in other countries. Now, for the small ones, the more you want to give them naman that, diba? I mean, they're small. I mean, some of them can barely take care of their own families. You know the horror stories. You know, they practically put up their entire home. You know, they'll mortgage their life, for their business to survive. So we want to be able to give them that. Now, on the incentive side, though, I do want to emphasize that we do hold them accountable, because these are tax laws. These are tax exemptions that all other Filipino and foreign companies doing business in the Philippines pay. So you want a tax exemption, you prove that you qualify, and then you stay accountable throughout the time that you're availing of those incentives. And that one has a long list of requirements, including, like I said, the CBA and the sustainability plan and so on and so forth.
Okay, Senator, I wanted to share a question from the audience. Here is the question. What are the plans to potentially make the Philippines a startup hub, like what Hong Kong or Estonia did in the past through policies and special incentives? Just for context, India, for example, last week just gave birth to 6 new tech unicorns, enjoying such a record-breaking week for the India tech boom. So are there incentives that are specially catered for startups to grow here, for us to finally have our unicorns?
Yes, we actually have tiered incentives under the CREATE law. It's very specific as in the law. It's not something we left for the, the agency, DOF and BOI and DTI to figure out later on. It's actually in the law where we have tiers. And so the highest level, tier 3, provides for the most incentives for research and development, resulting in significant value added, higher products, improved efficiencies, breakthrough, new knowledge, intellectual property. So that basically captures the whole thing. I think what's important here is the need for the personalities behind the law that we pass, who will now go out there and promote our country as these hubs, because we already provided the structure. If I had the time, in fact, I do have a commitment to DOF and DTI that I would go on the road shows with them, because I would be very happy to promote this. I mean, I read this to you, and even you, Mimi, I mean, I'm sure you're so used to listening to these terms. You might be the only one remaining awake if I read all these terms to you. You know what I mean, right? I'm sure that goes through your head when you're having these Q&As with your guests. And so I'm very conscious of that. But I know most of the people listening here are technical in themselves. But then, there may be marketing people here who, okay, I don't need to hear that. Just tell me that, it's a good place for me to market, and I'll sell this. So I personally have to try to be a little bit of both. I don't want to be so technical that I put people to sleep, but then I don't want to be too general that we're, the experts here are like, ang babaw naman nun, I mean, we already know that. I mean, I don't know exactly who. I have to assume always that my audience is broad, and I have to cater to all of them. So my response to you is as general and as specific as I can get. But the point is, the framework is there, but we need to fill in that we need to fill it in with the details, with the image of like, I know for a fact, like in Thailand, Chiang Mai is the go-to for like nomads. And I was planning to go there just before COVID hit, and then when it hit, I said, apparently there's this peak time where they're all there. I think that's like January and early Feb. So I was going to go this year, but COVID pa rin. So, I mean, but there's these images in my mind which can easily be translated to beautiful PowerPoint and presentations to sell these ideas to the world, for them to come in. Again, I think one of our highlights there is the Filipino people themselves, right? I mean, we're so accommodating. People who come here almost refuse to leave. And then we speak the English language. And now we're creating a better business environment. So I think the ingredients are all there.
Okay, Senator, we don't have much time. Your team is reminding us to wrap up. So I want to end with a rapid fire, a fast talk round. 3 questions that you can answer in 1 sentence or shorter. Just give us your top of mind answers, okay? So let's start. 1 provision that you wish the president did not veto in the CREATE bill.
Well, it's my law, so I can't think of one, but I do know that the real estate issue was highly, there was a lot of concerns. But the good news is I can't answer these questions in one question.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean,
Go ahead.
it's so complex. So, but anyway, just to say that I've had a discussion with the Secretary of Finance, and the idea really is to bring it to the valuation rates, which are closer to what we have in Create. So that's sort of the good news there.
Okay, how many jobs in your estimate will be created because of this law?
Okay, I hate giving numbers. That's not my thing. I don't give numbers, but what I will say is this. My work in sustainable, my other committee, and because I chair the budget for the Department of Education and the Commission on Higher Education, is to get more of our graduates into higher level jobs and to be able to give them jobs in this country versus leaving the country. So whatever that number is, I don't want to put a figure to it, but if I learn, which I hope to learn sooner than later, that these are the kind of jobs that are being filled, that were value added now in the supply chain, then that is really my goal. It may not translate into thousands and thousands of jobs on day one, but those are the job openings that I want to see.
Okay, and finally, what is the next thing that you as a lawmaker, as a policymaker will create and why? Just one.
What is the next thing? Is that your question?
Yes.
Okay. Again, it depends on which committee we're talking about. In this Committee on Ways and Means, next up is the PIFITA. This is the passive income tax. So that's there. And there's also the land valuation. Those are the two bills that are pending. On sustainable development goals, sustainable cities, the future of health, the future of education, because that is the committee that I'm passionate about. And it's something that is not going to change our lives today, unlike the taxation rate will change the corporate lives today. But this is something we need to do to prepare for tomorrow, for the future. So those are the bills that I'm working on these days.
Eyes on the future. Thank you so much, Senator Pia, for joining us and for the insights this morning. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice day and stay safe.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone for attending today's webinar, Creating a New Future for Philippine Businesses. If you sent in your questions and you weren't able to address them because of limited time, don't worry. The team from Colliers Philippines will reach out to you via email after the event. And now, to give us the closing remarks, I would like to call on Colliers Philippines Director for Client Services, Maricris Sarino Hoson.
Thank you, Mimi. On behalf of Colliers Philippines, I would like to express my sincerest gratitude to Senator Pia Cayetano and you, Mimi Ong, for joining us in today's webinar to elaborate on the Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentive Enterprise Act, or CREATE law, and its potential to spur business growth, which creates goal to improve investments and job creation. We are optimistic that its benefits will further be realized as the economy gradually recovers from the pandemic. To our valued clients, industry partners, and guests, thank you for taking the time to join us for today's discussion on this landmark tax reform, which will help the nation rebound and chart a new path for growth moving forward. Colliers Philippines aims to invest in relationships by delivering client engagement experiences even under the current circumstance, and be experts for sharing insights that will help lead our industry into the future. We aim to accelerate your success, and we remain ready to support you with your real estate needs. Please keep safe, and we wish you all a successful year ahead. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for that, Mary Chris. For our viewers today, you're welcome to reach out to the organizing teams if you have further questions or if you want more information. Once again, I am Mimi Yong. It's been an honor to be with you this morning to facilitate the conversation. And on behalf of Colliers Philippines, the American Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, and the ABS-CBN News Channel, thank you so much for attending the webinar today. Stay safe and stay healthy. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.